We can start with some question with our speakers. From you, Fatima, please. What is the level of public versus private implication in the projects developed by Masen? If you can tell us about this, sure. It will be so appreciated. Go ahead.
Pleasure. Thanks. Yes, definitely. I think in these very innovative and breakthrough projects, it's really the challenge to find the right balance between public and private implication in those projects. Definitely, the public support at the beginning is important, but we need also to make sure that the private is engaged and that the logics of the markets also works their part. So maybe in our projects, starting with Masen itself, because Masen is a limited company, Société Anonyme, which works as a private company, but it's 100% public funding. So we are, in our sense, the two public and private streams that are going. But for our project as well, it is, as I presented earlier, through that best risk allocation that we make sure that we look at what the risk can be taken at the public level. Mm-hmm. So for example, the commercial risk, because earlier I mentioned the role of Masen off-taker. So we guarantee that the production that will be produced will be at the end of, there will be an off-take. So other risks like that, land, as I mentioned, and then let the private sector also take their own risks on other aspects of the project. So it's that best risk allocation that is important. The second thing maybe is also, at the time, there were many incentives that were provided elsewhere, the feed-in tariffs that were provided. In Morocco, we didn't make that choice. Exactly. We rather went through competitive processes, selected the best players, and when needed, we looked at how we could bridge, eventually with additional support. So again, it's finding the right balance, the right implications, have each actor take its own risks when it's appropriate, to really support the launch of these great initiatives for renewables 10 years ago. It was not as it is today, so obvious. For hydrogen tomorrow. So I think for these really innovative projects, we need to find the right combination of the two.
Maybe the model was approved also in the first experience in solar complex of Norwazazet, when Masen played of 3 roles as off-taker also first, and shareholder, and also the lender with the financial mobilizing with the IFIs. And it was a very, very great experience that maybe I let the opportunity to my colleague Kamal to talk about this for wind experience in ONEE. But first, if I can ask you a question, Kamal, based on ONEE's extensive and successful experience in the development of IPP projects, how do you see the advantages of this development mode for the national electrical system?
So you mentioned the extensive experience. Let me just clarify this point. You know that Morocco, ONEE has developed many IPP projects, which account for, let's say, about 45% of installed capacity. If we add other ones developed by Masen and also the private sector in the free market, we can achieve more than 50% of capacity, inside capacity, which is in the private side. So according to our experience in ONEE, I would say that the advantages of the PPPs in the electrical sector are, let's say, first, the issue that we have for electrical infrastructure, that it requires a huge budget. So I think the private sector is here to participate with its capacity, investment capacity, so as to make possible to realize these projects.
And to push the national strategy also.
Second, and according to our experts also, let's say that the performance, all the IPPs we have, they are achieving good performance. We have very high availabilities and very high performances. So I'm talking about thermal and also wind power. Third point, let's say that the role of private is its flexibility, so as to follow the changing markets is very important, so as to help the public sector executing its strategy. This is very important for us also.
Okay, sounds good from your side, Kamal. Thank you very much. From your side, Reda, what has been the experience of private sector, private actor like NAREVA, partnering with the public sector over the last year?
That's a great question, Loubna. Thank you. Well, if you're a firm believer in the potential of renewables, like we are in Morocco, then the last 10 years or so have been an exhilarating ride, because as my colleagues from ONEE and Masen have pointed out, the vision laid out under the leadership of His Majesty the King had set out extremely ambitious goals for the sector, and by all accounts, most of these goals have been achieved by now, whether in terms of technology adoption or in terms of renewables penetration in the Moroccan economy, or in terms of private sector participation. So when you have private actors, domestic or foreign, that invest so much, we're talking about billions of euros over the years in Morocco, in this sector alone, that validates the strategy of the government and the public entities. So we in NAREVA definitely say ourselves as enablers, as enactors of this strategy, mostly through PPPs, because you see in Morocco, there are two ways, broadly two markets to sell your electricity, either to governments, B2G, which we do through PPPs, with set price set up in PPAs, and then we sell the electricity to ONEE, we sell the electricity to Masen. So that's one way to sell the electricity. And we've had remarkable partners in this endeavor over the years. The second market is more like a free market, and we're allowed to sell our electricity directly to corporates. So we negotiate our prices directly with corporates and tie them up over medium to long-term contracts in PPAs. And this has been possible because the regulatory framework has adapted and has allowed us to bypass some public entities and sell directly our electricity to private corporations, to the benefit of everybody, because this reduces their carbon footprint, this reduces their electrical bills, which is in Morocco still a high item in their an important item in their charge. But we also believe that these successful public policies, I mean, they've put Morocco on the map of renewables, but this was just the first wave, because you see we're just in the beginning of renewables. By 2050, we estimate that 75% of the electricity will be provided through renewables, and the total consumption now is going to increase by 61%, most of it coming from emerging countries. So we have a good, if we play our cards well, we will continue to succeed. But this is how we see our partnership with public entities, and actually we've been thriving in the environment that they're creating. But as partners, we also try to challenge public entities and try to point directions which we think can be areas which we think can be improved. I think maybe we can, maybe we'll talk about this later. There's still improvements to make in the regulatory framework, mostly when it comes to corporate PPAs and the 1309 law, which would like to open to medium voltage, as you know, and also in terms of decentralized generation, there are areas of.
It's very clear, Reda.
growth
Thank
there.
you very much for this precision. Maybe if you can switch to the next topic with decarbonization and start with you also as the private operator. What do you think, Reda, are the next challenges for a decarbonated Moroccan economy?
Well, Morocco, in this region, has all it takes to be showcase an example of how you set up a decarbonated economy, because we've been lucky enough to be endowed with fantastic resources in terms of wind, in terms of sun irradiation. We've been lucky enough to have land available to install our solar PV or our wind farms, and we have developed over the years technical capacity. So we have a huge pool of human resources that are actually top-notch, and they know what they're doing. So we can set up an example, but my colleagues have said that today we've reached 20% of 20% of the production of electricity in Morocco is done through renewables, which is a fantastic feat in itself. But here's the catch. Production of electricity in Morocco is only 20% of the whole consumption of energy in Morocco. So the rest, 80%, is not electrified. So the biggest sector which consumes energy today, as you know, as you might have guessed, is transport. Transport today is around 39% of the consumption of energy in Morocco, and it's around 17% of its GHG emissions. So if you're serious about a decarbonated economy, if you really want to put a dent in our CO2 emissions, then you have to tackle transport. And you have to tackle it also for microeconomic reasons, because we import more than 90% of our energy today. So this affects our balance of payments in a significant way, when we have the resources in Morocco to produce our own electricity. So transport is going to be key. This will go through e-mobility. Kamal Htoute from ONEE has mentioned that there is a roadmap that is being prepared today in e-mobility. So in e-mobility, we'll have to think about charging infrastructures, which is very important, revamping our transport systems, because e-mobility is just not cars. It's also bus, motorcycles. We also have to change consumption patterns, bring back financial incentives to bring people inside e-mobility and make them buy new cars. And there is also the regulatory framework that will be changed. I talked about 1309. We'd like to. It would be interesting if we expand it to medium voltage companies, so smaller companies, SMEs, can benefit from the reduced costs of energy auto production. Because Morocco would like to see the advance of prosumers, corporations who produce electricity, but also consuming, and so on and so forth. We think also hydrogen is the next big thing, but we'll probably talk about this later.
We'll take the roadmap, hydrogen in Morocco, inshallah. Fatima, from your side in Masen. Many countries have announced the ambitious decarbonization targets with the objective of fully decarbonizing their energy system by 2050. What is planned for Morocco, and what are Masen contributions?
Yeah, definitely. As my colleague Reda has just said, we have been concentrated in the first 10 years of our experience on how we could produce green electricity and use the renewable for the electricity sector. The next 10 years, at least, I think we will be, of course, focusing on reaching our objectives. So the production of green electricity is still in our targets, but definitely how we could also contribute to the decarbonization of the economy. Electricity alone is not enough. The figures have been mentioned, 20%. So that leaves all the rest with opportunities to also have this renewable energy provide all its value, all its potential. So in the industry sector, for example, we have already invested in solutions that convert solar into heat, even into cold. So really looking at other type of energies rather than electricity that could be used also in the industry processes and avoid using any conventional resources. Hydrogen, of course, it is used today. We need to have it greener. So again, the potential for renewables, especially when we see the targets that are announced in Europe and the proximity of Morocco compared to this market, so that that provides opportunities for Morocco, of course, for its consumption, but also for potentially other partners.
Exceptional potential. It's helpful for Morocco also.
Exactly. And well, the transport sector, definitely. That's also something that we're looking at in terms of e-mobility. All the prerequisites that you've mentioned are definitely needed, but also it will make sense if it's e-mobility with renewable electricity. So we tend to forget also that we concentrate on producing the cars, producing the infrastructures, but at the end, if we're using electricity produced from fossil fuels, then we have just déplacé the problem. So really to look at it from an integration perspective, how we should continue to decarbonize the electricity sector for that e-mobility to reach the objectives that it's looking at. So on this specific topic, so we have also looked at other alternatives, waiting for maybe the gap between conventional cars and e-cars to lower down. The prices have definitely, in terms of battery, been decreasing this last 10 years, divided by 10. So, but before we reach parity, there are also other solutions in providing biofuels, for example, even from waste. So it's sometimes we do things that are, some resources have, you know, some real obvious outputs, but they can also participate in producing other valuable outcomes and in that way contribute to decarbonize our economy. So those are kind of some examples in terms of what we're looking at also and projections that we have for the industry, for the transport sector, and you know, how to best valorize our renewable resources.
Okay, thank you, Fatima, for all the clarifications. ONEE participate also on the decarbonation in Morocco. Kamal, what are the actions, the special action initiated by ONEE to move forward in the decarbonization in the Moroccan economy?
Yes. So as mentioned in my presentation, you know, ONEE is here to ensure the connection of the industrial to the grid with how to say it, with the competitive costs of energy and also with a good quality of service. This first. Second, I would like to talk about e-mobility, as I mentioned. You know that ONEE is preparing a roadmap of e-mobility, as like other large operators in the world. They take how to say it. They have a great role on this area, on the e-mobility, and ONEE is doing like this is how to say doing this way, in this by how to say it, by studying a roadmap and giving proposition so as to develop e-mobility in Morocco.
Je pense que nous serions capables de développer ces projets au
about
Maroc.
hydrogen also,
Mais
we believe
si nous
that
parlons de...
will be a great opportunity for Morocco. So regarding the potential, renewable potential that we have, and you know the importance of this for developing this sector, hydrogen sector. So in concerning this point, I will mention two actions we have. You know that ONEE is chairing now the GSAP, Global Sustainable Electrification Partnership, which is an alliance between large operators in the world So we are working together in the technical group so as to develop ideas and to discuss how we can make or how we can accelerate the development of this area. Also, also we are trying to take advantage of our partnerships, so as to develop some pilot projects. Talking about, for example, mixing hydrogen with gas, natural gas, and burning it in our units. This is a pilot project that we are working on it.
Sure, there are more and more opportunities to develop exactly very interesting projects in this site. So maybe let's move on to the next and the final topic of opportunities, but I will ask you kindly to respect the time, because I will give the chance of the audience to ask you and open the debate with them if it's possible. Kamal from ONEE, with you. What the role can ONEE play in strengthening the country's integration in the regional and continental level in the energy sector? In 1 minute, please, if you can.
So originally speaking, as I mentioned in my presentation, we are interconnected with European system, electrical system, with our neighbors, and we are expecting to expand this interconnection with Europe, also to construct how to realize an interconnection with the south, with Mauritania. This is one side of your question. The second one, concerning the continental objective, we can say that we want to take advantage of our experience, especially, and we are already done that. Especially the rural electrification. We know that it's a success story in Morocco. We launched the program in 1996, and we are already at a realization of 99.7%. So 30 million people are now connected in the rural areas, and are benefiting from all the service that can the electrification bring to them.
Thank you very much. Really, as Moroccan experts, we are so proud.
Yes, it's a success story in Morocco.
To have that, and really, it's a success story for this site. Fatima, if you can share with us the Masen vision on Africa, please, in 1 minute also. What role can Morocco and Masen play in the field of renewable energy at the national level with both Africa and Europe? If you can quickly say that.
Yeah, in a few words, definitely our international strategy is also looking at our continent. Obviously, Africa, where we have still 600 million of population that doesn't have access to electricity. So definitely, when you think about those numbers, that really appeals you. So on that end, what we have conducted is a series of actions to, first of all, share experience, to learn from each other on various topics, and to see how we can collaborate in order to push the development of renewable energy on the African continent as well. And that took the forms of either bilateral collaboration on addressing specific needs for specific countries, looking at what are the best projects to respond to those needs, but also through multilateral collaboration. And I would just mention maybe 2 of them. The first one is the green access to electricity that was launched during the Climate Change Summit of the United Nations. And that is really looking at how green electricity could also contribute to the electrification of those populations. And the second one is the Desert to Power initiative, also with the African Development Bank, who's looking more specifically at the Sahel region, and again, how we could benefit also from Moroccan experience and have those regions also have more and more renewable integrated in their mix. So those are some of the actions that we're conducting, looking at this South-South collaboration, but also opportunities for South-North with Europe. And one example again is the Sustainable Electricity Trade Roadmap, where we're looking at what are the opportunities to exchange green electricity, maybe tomorrow green energy, and address both challenges on the two sides of the Mediterranean Sea. We have a great potential, and we all want to, again, contribute to a greener economy for tomorrow. So this trade roadmap, the next step would be to maybe implement a corporate PPA, cross-border corporate PPA to make to really show that this is feasible. We have proved it so many times from an economic, technical perspective. Of course, there are many other things to be put in place, legislatively speaking, for example. But again, it's really the objective at the end is to have the examples of renewables spread out, have more and more countries to take that into account. So we multiply the number of actors, the solutions, and that we have at the end, a greener future for our generations.
Inshallah, it will be exceptional achievement if the African countries will share the homogeneous vision really in this aspect. It will be very interesting. Maybe Reda, for different position from the private sector, what are the opportunities for growth, especially for NAREVA?
So in renewables today, the sky is, if you do things right, the sky is the limit, especially if you come from emerging countries like Morocco, because make no mistake about it, renewable energy today is an emerging country game. Last year alone, there were more than $300 billion invested in renewable assets all over the world. Of these $300 billion, 152, a little more than half, were invested in emerging countries like ours. So if you take China and India out of the equation, it's still more than $70 billion. So a country like Morocco has a lot of has avenues of growth in this area that needs to be considered, and Morocco will be hopefully a big player. So we see for a private company like us 3 main areas of growth. One is corporate PPAs, very classically. We've been doing that for a number of years now, and today we have more than 20 big clients in the high voltage. We provide to them more than 90% of the electricity, and we actually sell them more than 2 terawatt hours of energy, and soon 3 terawatt hours. So they decrease their footprint, they decrease their electrical bills, and we also provide them with the visibility over the electrical bills because they're tied up into long-term PPAs. So we will deepen our involvement in that, maybe cross-borders PPAs, maybe that could be an option, as Fatima Hamdouch has mentioned. So that's number one. Number two would be power to industry. So bringing industries closer to the sites of production of energy. And here, the new carbon tax, the new border carbon tax that will be implemented by Europe in 2026 opens huge opportunities for a country like ours. Because what Europe is doing is that there are one of the only markets in the world that has a real carbon tax through the ETS. So they're penalizing energy-intensive countries in their homeland. So in order to level the playing field, they will impose this carbon tax so competitors can also pay up or clean up their act and export clean products towards Europe. So what we're saying in Morocco is that we could host these energy-intensive industries and help them clean their act through powering them through green electricity, and then helping them re-export their products towards Europe. So that's a win-win-win. Win for IPPs like ours because then we're expanding our scope. Wins for industries because they go further along the path of decarbonization of their processes, and wind for export markets like the European Union, because now they'd be letting in green products inside. And number third, power to X. Hydrogen is not, we think, a hype. We think hydrogen, once the economics are right, are here to stay. Most of analysts say it's a $600 billion market by 2050. And it's a rich idea, hydrogen, because as you know, intermittency has been the bane of renewables, because the production profile of renewables doesn't match the consumption profile over the course of a day. So you have these huge surpluses of energy that goes unused. And hydrogen is a good way to use these surpluses of energy. So it allows you to stock energy. It's also combustible in its own right. We've seen Maersk announcing ship that will run on hydrogen, they said 2024. We've seen Airbus saying their planes would be flying with hydrogen. But most of all, hydrogen is a fantastic vector towards where the game is, which is green molecules, because ammoniac and methanol are already proven, already have a proven utility. So yeah, we think the future is rosy for green energy, and we believe Morocco has a big card to play here.
Thank you very much, Reda. I was asking for 1 minute, but it's already interesting.
I'll be shorter on the next one.
Thank you. It was very interesting from you, our panelists. Maybe if can I open the debate with our audience, ladies and gentlemen? Please welcome. You can ask them if you have some special point. Go ahead. I would just invite you to present yourself if possible, and you have 2 minutes to ask your.
Everyone. My name is Anas Belmamoun, Vice President of NG for Business Development for the AMEA region, Africa, Middle East, and Asia. So this is more of a statement rather than a question. So NG as a group sees Morocco as a strategic country, a country of focus. And it's important to note that we have come a long way, and the strategic vision in Morocco is, for the first part, as you have mentioned, has allowed us to understand the challenges of renewable energy and of Morocco. So one of the few things that we forget to mention for the energy sector in Morocco is the chance that we are allowed to, for example, produce in the south of Morocco and sell in the north. So, for example, the plant can be located in Al-Ayoun and be sold in Tangier. This, when I compare to other countries, for example, in the region, this is a very challenging item, especially for the grid operator like ONEE. So, once again, the most important thing that I want to mention here is that we are really hoping for this next phase to come, especially in terms of pipeline, in terms of medium voltage projects. And we keep on, I mean, today, NG has went through a very large restructuring, and we have refocused our main countries, and Morocco remains our main, one of the main focuses in Africa. So I just want to thank again the different entities such as Masen and ONEE, and we hope that we will see this next move in renewable energy very soon, that we are waiting for it, and we hope that they will come very soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Belmamoun. Maybe some clarification from your side? Go ahead.
Maybe just to stress on the fact that this point that you mentioned, I think we have mentioned in the presentation. Maybe I gone over it very fast, but it's one of the mission of ONEE to make sure that the grid is ready, so as to develop all the the quantity of capacities of renewables. I think in the presentation I mentioned the line, the HVDC line that we are studying, so as to make sure that all what we can produce in the south can be transmitted to the north, the area where we have more consumption. But yes, this is my point.
Thank you, Kamal. Is there other?
Thank you very much. So Selim Mokadem, VP Operating Development from Siemens Energy from Germany. First of all, I want to thank you. It was really nice to see 3 building blocks from Morocco speaking and laying down a plan that makes sense actually for the country. There was a real cohesion actually in the presentation. It was really nice to see. And a question I found very interesting and inspiring, there was the power to industry that we heard from NAREVA. We understand that it's more an industry to power or an industry to clean power, basically the scheme, inviting some entities to come in Morocco to beneficiate from the location to actually the power at play. Is that actually a scheme that is already unfolding? Is that something or just a concept? Can you maybe actually comment a little bit more on that? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Selim from Siemens.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to see Siemens representing
Our partner.
Partner Siemens. Also, NG is also a partner. So thank you for this question. It's actually a concept that we're working on today, which is, as you said, bringing industries closer to green power, because we believe there's a whole range of industries that are trying to forge their own path towards a decarbonated economy, not only for CSR reasons, but also for competitiveness reasons, because we can provide extremely cheap energy today, but also for compliance reasons, because Europe has set up an example. Well, they actually delayed now the actual implementation of their carbon tax to 2026. But other countries and other economic areas will surely do the same. You've seen that China has introduced a carbon tax very recently. So if you take direct carbon taxes and ETSs alone, these two systems almost cover almost 40% of GHG emissions today in China, Europe, California, South Africa. So more and more energy-intensive industries like aluminium or data centers, or to be able to access these export markets without having to pay a tax, and to be able to stay competitive, they will have to reduce the carbon intensity of their products. And what better way to do that when you're an energy-intensive industry than to power yourself with green energy? So this fits the mission also of NAREVA, which is to be a green solutions partner, and hopefully we'll talk more about that in the coming months.
Thank you, Reda, for your responses. Second for silence, but
Meanwhile, if I may.
okay.
If I may, maybe just to respond to one of your points that you mentioned clearly, that having a robust electricity grid is definitely a key in Morocco to be able to integrate our renewable energies. For Africa also, it's a challenge for some of the countries. So definitely what we're also looking at is also other solutions that help complement the ones that need the grid to transport electricity. And I think the next years will be also around other type of off-grid solutions, and all the question of smart grids also will be important. So definitely this is at the heart of the distribution of this electricity that we'll produce. But we have to think also of other solutions to be able to respond now to the needs of those countries.
Thank you, Fatima, again for this clarification. So, if we don't have more questions, maybe I have the last question for you, dear panelists. But I expect a quick response, please. I will start with Fatima, first ladies, the panelists. Fatima, if I tell you climate and renewable in Morocco, two words.
I would use the slogan of Masen, endless power for progress. I think Morocco has
Great.
all the power for the progress of tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Kamal, if I said equipment plant, cost, and technology.
So you are talking about the expansion plan?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Everyone knows that it's our mission in ONEE to make sure that the expansion plan is as optimized as possible, so as to have to reduce cost of electricity, and also we are regarding about the maturity of the technologies. So this is my answer.
Thank you very much, Kamal. Reda, for you, as the Moroccan developer, and with this announcement from public sector, do you think that the Moroccan developers, international developers also, will participate actively if we talk opportunity of business, if we talk
Towards this new goal?
you will participate actively?
Yes.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting to share with you all these topics, and thank you to the audience also. Maybe the next event, I don't know, next month, next year.
Thank you, Loubna. I'd like to say a word. I'd like to thank the Moroccan team, which has been organizing this for almost 2 years now. They've been fantastic.
Exactly.
They've been making this possible. They've been working tirelessly for smooth organization. So thank you to everybody for making this.
And maybe we'll rest it.